Are there other examples that you see that, are in products where, this sort of like there's been something missed?
Oh yeah, there's tons. Like I'm sure everyone knows the Google Photos example
Yeah.
where they recognize people who are Black as gorillas,
Mm.
and so that's really offensive. And some of this stuff is life-threatening. This is not in tech, but when they test safety belts or airbags, they only did it for a male at a certain height, and so when women drivers started using these new safety systems, it caused more fatalities because they weren't included in either the testing or the input. I think if there are plenty of examples of this, and some just seem very, very subtle, like getting a Band-Aid that matches my skin is a lot harder than you think it should be, right? And
Yeah.
and you got to think of like, why haven't there been a lot of hues and color changes for people? And like even like Face ID in Asia, where they have always been wearing masks, how Face ID, that it was just added that it's able to recognize when you have a mask on and ask for your PIN. So things like that is where like having more people in the room and inclusion can work around some of these problems and make it so that it's more accessible. Because let's say the mask thing, for example, that could have been there the whole time before COVID and no one would have noticed. And then someone put on a mask and say, hey, it's nice that it does this. So being able to think about another region or another culture helps your product overall, and it keeps you from having to rapidly iterate to make these changes. One feature that I do want to praise that shows that tech companies are listening, on the Android operating system, there is on Android 10, you can turn on closed captionings for all audio. So if there's no captioning provided by a video, you can turn this on, it'll listen to the audio and then put captions on the screen for you. Which is great accessibility for people who may not have hearing loss or are totally deaf, or for someone who wants to watch a conference without waking up someone in the same room, or if you are in an airport in a loud situation and you can't hear the audio. So doing these things that help for accessibility, I don't want to say that they're only for the group that affects. It helps everybody, and that benefit spreads. And even if you're using it or not, like the iPad, you touch it and it seems so simple, but then they discovered that making it more accessible by touching it allows for like 2-year-olds to now do computing that was enabled by making it more accessible for other people.
Yeah. I remember you were telling me about the idea of like, the harsh curbs, and then smoothing out the curbs not only allows someone in a wheelchair to go through, but it's easier with a stroller. And I like this trickle down effect of, if you're the most thoughtful, then actually everyone else is benefits as well. And it's not just like, hey, we're doing this one-off thing. It actually affects the entire ecosystem of how that product may interact with its users.
Yeah, and the one fallacy is in terms of like, most people won't use that, or like it's just a small edge case. Keep in mind that just because you feel like you are not part of you're not someone who would benefit from these solutions, that may not always be the case. I know someone who lost through carpal tunnel the use of their hand for a little bit. So one hand, they couldn't use their left hand, but they could only use their right. And being able to operate a phone one-handed was great. They had to get a one-handed keyboard. Or let's say that you become blinded, or like you get into a car wreck and you can't use your legs anymore. Just because you feel like, hey, I'm able-bodied and so this doesn't affect me, that might not always be the case. And so it's not only for people now, but it could be a future you that can benefit from these technologies.